Look, if Harry Truman couldn't nationalize the steel industry during wartime, this president doesn't have the power to declare an emergency and build a multi-billion-dollar wall on the border.
The story Schiff is referring to played out in 1952 when Harry Truman was president and U.S. steelworkers tried to go on strike in the midst of the Korean War. Truman declared a national emergency that nationalized the American steel industry, really as a matter of national security. He'd hoped that that would keep the mills up and running. The Supreme Court struck him down, saying only Congress has the authority to seize private property, not the president. Did this set a precedent that could stop President Trump? Joining me now, Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. I know there's a lot of different thinking on this.
Yes.
You say no.
Well, I say this did set a precedent.
He can't do it.
That the president of the United States can't do this. The emergency power that Truman attempted to use did a couple things. It seized private property against the owners, and it spent government money to pay those who were on strike or to replace the strikers. So the Supreme Court struck it down for two reasons. Only Congress can seize property when it pays for it, and only Congress can authorize the expenditure of money. And President Truman didn't have the authority to do either. The rest of that executive order, which encouraged people to go back to work, and many did, was perfectly valid. The president has valid emergency authorities in a time of a true emergency, but he can't spend money and he can't take property unless the Congress has authorized it. That's directly from the Constitution.
All right.
If that were not the case,
well,
then President Obama could have declared, listen, a national emergency, there isn't enough health insurance around, we're going to start paying for it.
I mean, that's the question. How do you have to prove your case that you actually have a national emergency on your hand? And they're going to do that, you know, with some of these numbers. Let's put them up on the board. You've got, that's the number of 2018 apprehensions, 396,000. November 2018, apprehensions over 1,700 people a day. Right now, you've got over 12,000 migrant children who are now being housed. Many of that number came over on their own without their parents. He is arguing that this is a national crisis.
You know, the numbers are very impressive. But an emergency is defined in the 1976 Act as when the government is overwhelmed and its ordinary assets don't work. I don't think President Trump would say that. He once had 15,000 troops at that border, and he wasn't saying that the military doesn't work. What the emergency power is intended to do is to facilitate the movement of government assets to focus on the emergency. It's not intended to give the president extra constitutional authority.
The parameters of a national emergency are very broad for a president, and that there are a number of ways that he can institute something, at least on a temporary basis. The other question that I want to ask you is, you know, with regard to the existing 600 miles, they're already rebuilding those fences. They're rebuilding what's existing there. So that's already government property security. So yes. Could he do the areas that are already there, where the fences, we've seen pictures in Tijuana, they're like waist high.
So here's the problem. The areas on which they have built the fences pursuant to authority and money authorized by the Congress, therefore lawful, are on property the government owns. According to Congressman Hurd, Republican of Texas, through whose district much of the new wall that the president wants to build would have to go, this is mostly private property, meaning they'd have to take it by eminent domain.
Right.
And that can't be done pursuant to the emergent authority, and that can't be done overnight, because if you disagree with what the government wants to pay you for your backyard, the government has to prove its case in a trial. So the president may be biting off more than he can chew here legally and financially. He is clearly in dangerous waters constitutionally.
In terms of what's already there, though, he could use that power to rebuild, as they've been doing. That area, and Mick Mulvaney is, you know, shaking everybody's pockets in every agency, trying to figure out the areas where they do have money already allocated that they could use for this.
The money has to have been allocated for that purpose. Can he take money from column A and move it to column B when only A was authorized? Absolutely not, because the Congress says the individual expenditure must be directly or impliedly authorized by Congress, not by the president. Otherwise, he's bypassing the Congress, and he's not a president, he's a prince.
We've seen that happen many times, as you know. Executive order is an interesting elasticity to it at times. And when President Obama said he had a pen and a phone, and he would, you know, every president tries to do what they can within the law.
Yes, and I understand that often their hearts are in the right place. But when President Obama made that threat about the pen and the phone, every court that looked at it enjoined him. and prevented him from doing
Well, that's
it.
why we have the system,
Yes,
right? That's why we
yes.
have the beautiful checks and balances
Yes,
that I know you
yes.
love so much. So we'll see what happens. Judge, great to see you.
All
Thank
the
you
best.
very
Happy
much.
New Year to
Thank
you.
you. Happy New Year to you, too.
Thank you.